to do. And maybe some people are looking at me right now saying, so naive. But you know what? I'll take a little naivete in this world because that's how we get through sometimes. And if we have an opportunity to do something for the first time in a very long time, Frank, let's do it. Let's try.
Well, you know what is the greatest opportunity that everybody has in front of them right now? It is an extension of what we were discussing on election night about how the media, this is prior to knowing that, whoa, this thing's in the bag. And, you know, one of the first pronouncements I made with you guys here after Pennsylvania got called, we were like, this thing's over. You know, Alaska was the clincher. And, you know, this thing's over. When we said that, the first thought that crossed my mind was, the media is dead and celebrity is dead.
Yes.
You think about all the king's horses and all the king's men that came out to try to push that lady over the finish line, and it ended up they had $1 billion in the coffers and they ended up $20 million in debt. And now most of the talent that they rolled out there to those arenas are, you know, coming out. Oprah today denying that she took $1 million to show up because people were wondering where the hell did all the money go.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I found out they had to build that stupid podcast that she did. They had to build a recreation of the set because, I don't know, maybe she's unable to. It's certainly going to be scheduling because no one had a more rigorous schedule than Donald Trump, and he was able to make it to Joe Rogan. So I can only assume that she was too uncomfortable in, you know, not in her hermetically sealed environment that they create for her, that they had to recreate this studio environment of this podcast. I don't remember how much it was, $100,000 or whatever, but just shows you the complete lack of awareness, I guess. I mean, or just the fact that she's such a useless candidate that they couldn't even prop her up with all the money in the world.
Yeah.
And that, you know, and I agree with you completely, man. The showing of the media and the celebrities, like, I'm so proud of the American people for seeing through all that because they were relentlessly barraged with the Obamas and the Oprahs and the M&Ms and all these losers who propped up a candidate that was not worth a damn.
Star-studded event, like, oh.
Yeah, and it's over, man. Obama, it's over. You are irrelevant. How does that feel?
Well, here, you brought this up here, too. You said, Frank, I want to show you something that should be very telling. And you showed us the MSNBC ratings the week after the assassination attempt in Butler.
It was a week after the debate, the first debate.
Then right before the assassination attempt.
Correct.
Okay, so between the debate and the assassination attempt, and you showed us a figure that was for unique viewers for the week was around 55,000.
Right. For the age demographic, I believe 25 to 54.
20, which is everything, because that's the future and the present mixed together. Okay, so now you got to take a look at this. These are some of the numbers coming in right now, because now we are post-election. Here is, hold on a second, let me get it up on screen. Here is MSNBC, according to, you know, End Wokeness put it out there, but MSNBC, Joy Reid's shows down 54.6%. Ari Melber, 49.6%. Chris Hayes down 47%. Alex Wagner, they're 53% down. Stephanie Ruhle, who is one of the worst out there, along with that Nicole, whatever her name is, Wallace.
Yeah,
67%. Nobody wants Stephanie Ruhle. You know, here's the thing. I'm looking at this here, and that's happening. I saw the headlines over CNN will axe top stars in layoff that will see hundreds fired as ratings continue to tank. So there seems to be another wave of firings over at CNN, including they think people are reporting that there's going to be top talent. It's an incredible bloodbath.
Yeah.
And
good use of that term.
Yeah. An actual bloodbath. I love it. It's incredible.
I know, man. I don't take joy or relish anybody else losing their job. But man, we've talked about this way too long. They have been. Let's just take the snapshot of the last 4 years between the 2020 election, COVID, the lead up to the 2024 election. There's no shame in these people. And I guess if you have no moral compass, there's nothing to shame. But they lied to the American people about so many things. It's almost. You know, sometimes you forget. You hear something like, hey, remember when I'll see something online. Hey, remember when they told us this? And you're like, oh yeah, I actually forgot that because they've lied so many times. Nothing is more deserving of this. Now, I don't think I'm enjoying the victory lap to some degree, watching people like Joy Reid, because even in the face of this loss, they have no introspection. None of the celebrities do. The Barbara Streisands of the world, the Stephen Kings, none of these idiots can really understand because they live in a bubble, just like the media personalities live in a bubble. So I don't want to, I want to enjoy this, but I want to make sure that we also make room for this emergence of a new media, emergence of a new everything, right? The Make America Healthy Again movement is the emergence of people who see health and nutrition the way I do, from a truly analytical data lens. We're going to have Rich on, someone who sees polling through his just like cold, calculated, data-centric perspective. And I want the same thing to happen with media. You are here, Frank, and people love your show and support your show because you're not trying to convince people of anything or tell them what to think. You're introducing them to material. You're teaching them how to navigate it. You're just presenting things. And that is really the what media was supposed to be about. And it's not anymore. And it's so clear that it's not about that anymore. And so I think that's why I as much as I want to delight in this, I also want to take the moment to say, hey, we have an opportunity here to drive a tractor trailer through this mess that they've created and start something brand new. And that's what excites me the most.
Yeah. Yes, I'm with you on that because it really is not even about the medium. I think that radio would still be wildly popular with people if there's something worth listening.
Right.
And in some cities, in some places, radio still is wildly popular and there's things worth listening to.
Yeah.
But right now, the reason why I say that is because whereas the digital medium, the podcasts, live streams, all that stuff has really supplanted television and has for a long time now. It's not just that, oh, you're a podcast, you're doing well. I have been seeing this past week, like this one guy that I know is out there. He's a progressive podcast. His name is David Pakman. People like him have literally been begging people to stop unsubscribing. Stop unsubscribing, please don't. And this has happened on the so-called right as well. Especially there are some accounts out there that were just 100% dedicated to like Q and talking about that stuff. And I saw that. I saw the writing on the wall of that was a long time ago. I said, damn, the victory. I hope there's no setbacks, or else there's going to be a lot of people who are going to see their nightly audiences go away because it's just like you're. They've sold a non-negotiable fantasy, a non-negotiable fantasy.
Absolutely.
Where if there's any crack in the hull here, it is essentially the Titanic sub. So it's been incredible just to see the whole thing just bottoming out. At least for now, they always fill their sails with something.
Yeah, but you can already see them starting. Trump is going to do this. Like every Twitter post from one of these unhinged people is Trump said he's going to do this. And then what the reasons why that's a disaster for democracy. But is it Chris Wallace, the guy who was the guy went from Fox to CNN? Is that Chris Wallace? Am I getting his name correct? I mean, he's irrelevant anyway, but I think that's him.
Yeah, he just left.
Yeah, and he said he's gonna. I think he was fired, but he said I'm gonna go look into the podcasting game, and it's just funny because
I subscribe to the Chris Wallace podcast.
Yeah, because no one ever, right? And the thing is, it's like you just said. You just said it perfectly. You have to have something to say. People aren't watching Chris Wallace on CNN, or they didn't watch him on Fox because it was CNN or because it was Fox. They're not watching you because you're useless. You have nothing to say. Everyone can see through the facade that is your intellect and how repeatable it is in any plug and play manner with any other MSNBC show or CNN show. So you go to the podcasting world. What do you have to say is the point. It's not like you said, it's not the medium. It's what you have to say, and he has nothing to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. I'm going to go try podcasting.
Well, and what you were saying before about, what these people have done and not really taking delight in somebody losing their job. Right. Maybe the production hands. I can imagine, there are people just, working at CNN who are, key grips or whatever that are just trying to put food on the table and may even vote.
Oh, absolutely.
Outside of the bounds of these people. Yeah. So I understand that when a ship goes down, there's going to be a lot of crew that take it. But, this is a market. This is a market shift. And there is nothing that hurts me. I get more pissed off when I see a business that is built on a bad model that is artificially kept afloat because they serve a purpose.
That's true.
Now, obviously, CNN's not going to go anywhere. They do serve a purpose for the deep state, so-called, and they're going to stick around. But in the meantime, the writing's on the wall. If you sweep the hallways over there at CNN, I guess they're going to need custodians. But for everything else, you might want to find another place to go, or at least get your resume out there. For the talent. Fuck them, and I'll tell you why.
Yes.
When you see, like I said, there's more than enough. The day after, okay, when your sports team loses a game, when the Yankees lose a big game, when the Cowboys lose a big game, even though there's been no big games for the Cowboys for 30 years, the one thing I do the next day is avoid everything.
I agree.
I don't want to see ESPN.
I agree.
I don't want to see a headline. I don't want to see anything. I know what happened. Leave me alone. Now, when I win, I want to see the big home run over and over.
Here.
Right? So I understand there's something going on with that. But when this is the case, I just think back of the times we had in the room together. When I think of the victory of last Tuesday, I don't go and relive that every time I see a new compilation of people having a fucking mental breakdown.
There's a lot of
and
them.
Listen, some of those people are unrecoverable, and they have committed themselves to evil ways of thinking, evil ways of life, all of it. So even in that respect, a lot of the little people are irredeemable at this point. But the people who did it are the talent at CNN,
Yes.
the talent at MSNBC, the teachers, the professors, whatever the hell it is. That, fuck you.
Yeah.
You ruin you've killed people. I mean, there are people who are killing themselves.
Yes. And that's, Frank, I think that's really important, because I say this all the time, and people can push back if they want, but it's the truth. We wouldn't have had COVID. We wouldn't even have the hatred of Donald Trump. People do not hate Donald Trump. And I know that may sound weird to people to hear. They hate the caricature that the media created. And that's a very different thing, because he's nothing like they portray him. Nobody could be the way they portray him. So the media did do this. They created the COVID hysteria. The same people who are doing these insane things online right now after the election are also probably wearing masks in the car. And you can just kind of predict the way they're going to live their life, as we've talked about on the show before, because of the media programming. And I agree with you. There is no price too steep to pay for these people, because they have driven society into they call Trump a danger to this and a danger to that. No. Look in the mirror. You are the danger to all of this. And that has to be rectified. And it can be with this wave of new media.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that's all I got on that. I'll save some of the other things that I have for the end. Let's get the show on the road, because Rich is going to join us in about 5 minutes. There's so much to do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with us tonight. I'll try to peek in on all of the chat rooms as the night goes on, but you know how it is. I hope that you call in. I hope that you send some super chats in. I'd love to hear from you. Quite frankly, super chat. Superchat.com. That's the universal chat, because we're not monetized on YouTube, or, sometimes it's just easy to give everybody one place to go. And I hope it works for you. I don't know. Sometimes I hear things, but I hope you guys have a good time tonight, because I think it's going to be a banger. All right, that's it. We'll be right back. So sit back and relax.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's go.
Go check it out. And when you're there, which is probably my favorite place to watch the show, then by all means, go to the forum. And on the forum, pinned to the top, is a very special forum post that I want to show you guys. It's called for newsletter. The newsletter and show feature, Share Your Christmas Cards, okay? Now, this is for the quite frankly, bulletin for December of 2024. That is coming up in a couple of weeks. Crazy to say. And we also have a hope that we can make this one for Christmas, this bulletin, open to the public. You know, this is a subscriber-only periodical. So I would just love to invite you all to be a part of this as we do every month, because fan features are really the lifeblood of this thing. It's that magical time of year again, and we want to see your Christmas cards. The Quite Frankly Bulletin will be releasing a very special holiday edition, and we want to feature you. Please share your favorite family photo Christmas cards. We know it's early, so feel free to share your card from any year. If you send more traditional cards, that's fantastic, but this feature will be mostly for family photos. If you have a spectacular card you want to share, that will be considered as well, but we really want to highlight the friendly faces of the Quite Frankly community. So you can upload it right there into the thread on quitefrankly.tv on the forum. Please be a part of it, because all of the Thanksgiving related stuff was really, really awesome, and we're hoping to be able to follow that into the new year as well. So thank you so much. All right, Jay. Well, what the hell? Where do we go from here? You know, there's a few things. You want to talk about the premise behind a lot of the cope and stuff like that, because now at this point, there's really no serious people out there asking for recounts and all that stuff. Right. And you know what? Rich just showed up. I'm not even going to open up this can of worms yet. It's just too much.
It's a good can.
I know. It's a big can. But joining us right now is our good friend, the director at Big Data Poll. He is a very, very hot ticket item just in general, but especially when it comes to election time. Man, oh man, we are very, very happy and grateful for the man himself. Rich Baris, how you feeling?
Living the dream, buddy. Living the dream. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Listen, you're here with me and my buddy Jay. It's great to have the three of us together tonight.
How's it going, Jay?
Rich, I got to tell you something, man. I've been a fan of your show for a long time. I actually found you through Frank 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't interact with the show at all, because usually I was listening to you. I found you when I was working at a hospital and everything like that. So, but I feel like you're my spirit animal in this field. You are to the polling industry what I am to the health sciences field. You go by the data and you do things the right way, and you don't care what people think. And I have a ton of respect for that. And I think you are the future of the polling industry. And I'm not just blowing sunshine up your skirt.
Man, I tip my hat to you. No, I really appreciate that. It's a thankless job most of the time, so I appreciate those words.
Yeah, man.
Well, you know, sure. Jay, I know that Jay and I were talking before the show, and there's a lot here that I think you're really going to jive with, Rich, and I can't wait to hear your opinion. But I want to open up with a very short thing that I was sent by a friend of mine, my history professor from college, and he sent me a link to a PJ Media article about, what went wrong with the Harris camp. What went wrong? And here's what he said. He said, Frank, there are two sides to many things, or even more. Whenever I would talk to a student whose team had just lost a game, I'd ask, did the other team play well? Below is an amusing description of some of the deficiencies of the Harris effort, the foundation of which I think is the insularity of her people. Vivek, just before the election, said that we would soon find out if we were right, and we were, or if we were talking in an echo chamber and deluding ourselves. The other side were the ones doing that. Now, I'd just like to give you a few minutes, Rich, now for some summarizing thoughts on what you believe were the most important precipitating factors for such an undeniable and historic win here. And then we'll get into big question marks that are left over.
Well, look, there's a lot. I mean, then it's hard to pack into one little thing. I think first and foremost, Frank, they're talk about a bubble. They are a small group of ruling class elites and wannabe elites. And that's who makes up the Democratic coalition. They're extremely insulated. They don't understand the American public. And they've been relying on an underclass of non-whites, mostly non-whites, who they are so insulated and so bubbled that they didn't see that those people have had it with them. And they went way too far to the left, way too far. But I think the bottom line is, and you and I talked about this a lot, it was always going to be hard to beat Donald Trump the way they were governing, because people were it's still fresh in their mind when Trump was president. And we were hearing this from people when we were polling all the time. Trump, he was a better president. I don't like the son of a, we would hear this a lot from people. I don't like the son of a, but man, he was a good president. The economy was good. That's incredibly difficult. Even if you're pretending to be like the American public, even if you're pretending to share their values, even if you're pretending you're going to be a good steward of the economy, it's hard to beat that because they're taking a risk on you. Whereas they already know that they're not taking a risk on Donald Trump. So that's like in the psyche, but as a backdrop to all of this. But then also, it was like one piece of advice as far as advertising that I gave the Trump campaign, and I did it for a reason. And it was, listen, and they didn't even do it, not the way I suggested, but it was like, listen, take the hit from the Olympics. You know you're going to get a copyright infringement. Who cares? Go forward with it. And just have a clip of Harris saying that she absolutely supports girls, men, biological men, beating on women in women's sports. Like, black and whatever you want to say, black and brown, right? Hispanic and black voters. I cannot tell you how much we heard out of both of their mouths. One, what about us? Who cares about all these, the damn illegals who come over here and take our social services? It's not a finite amount of resources, and they're being prioritized over us. And then two, have they lost their effing minds? A guy who thinks he's a girl isn't a hero. It's not a civil rights hero. It's a mentally disturbed person. Americans were not ready to see those images, man. They weren't. And then, I mean, again, all of that with the economics, let's face it, the Bureau of Economic Analysis and the Bureau of Labor Statistics lied to the country for 4 years about this economy. They decided the last minute they were just going to just put it out there. Nah, the job market stinks, and here's how long we've been revising these jobs reports every month, later on, with not telling it. I mean, they tell you, but it never gets the headline, Frank.
Right.
People knew they were being lied to. It's like, you're not going to tell me this is a strong labor market. And by the way, Hillary Clinton tried to do the same thing when she went against Donald Trump in 2016. The Obama administration kept saying things like, this is the new normal. Actually, we're really strong. Actually, the economy is really doing well. And then we only found out 3 months into Trump's presidency that the Bureau of Economic Analysis was lying to everybody about wage growth. And it was disgusting. It's like, they think they can trick the American public, and I think the American public has had it with the legacy media. Shows like yours and others are the future. That's where Americans are consuming their information from. And I mean, there's so much we could go on and talk about, but I really do think that's the case. And then also I would add this on top of it all, like a cherry, or some sprinkles on top. She was not a legitimate nominee. Okay. Can we cut the crap now that she's been beaten like a drum? She was not a legitimate nominee. Nobody has ever voted for this woman. They lied about Joe Biden being mentally acute. He was not. He was senile. She was part of that cover up. And instead of putting on a fair, the champions of democracy, instead of holding a fair contest, they instead had, the legacy media and their big donors subvert the duly elected president, if they've been claiming that, and certainly the legitimate nominee of the Democratic Party, and they installed her, Frank. Nobody voted for this woman. Nobody. Come on. I mean, she would have been the first president ever to not win her party's nomination. I mean, elected president. She would have been the first, because of course we had Gerald Ford step in for Nixon, right? But then what happened when Ford tried to do it on his own? He lost, right?
Yeah.
So she would never have been, Kamala Harris would never have made it through a Democratic primary. Never, as we know from 2020. But if we did it again this year, she would have failed again miserably. And yet they just installed her, told everybody she was great. Great beans, move forward. They didn't buy it.
Okay, so then there's so much that we're going to be
there really is.
I know it's impossible to do it all tonight, but Jay has a really great question too that I brought up in the days after the election as well. A part of the whole coping and we're trying to do an honest postmortem over here. And of course, whatever is left of the coalition that was trying to push this farce into mainstream America, they're trying to just hold on to any kind of legitimacy they can. That's why they're going into education statistics, right, Jay? We're going to do all that in a second. But, since we're talking about candidates, Rich, I'll tell you who the Democrats should consider running in 2028. That is Ruben Gallego. Okay, and listen, okay, I have to, the big question here, The big overarching question is what the hell happened in Arizona? But there's multiple parts here I just want to throw out there. Here is of course the Arizona presidential election. I'm sure you've seen all this before.
Yeah.
Number one, why is it taking a week to call Senate races all over the place? And when we got the president the night of. But number two, explain how it's possible that both Kari Lake and Ruben Gallego have enough votes to have beaten Kamala Harris at this point. But okay, so it's either because this is the presidential election. Now here is the Senate. You're telling me it's either 165,000 Trump voters sat it out for the Senate race, or 90,000 Democrats decided to vote for Senate and said to hell with the presidency when supposedly democracy was at stake. Rich, I can't buy either of it.
Listen, there are always under and over votes. There are, but this is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
And so is Wisconsin, by the way. Those ballots in Milwaukee, apparently, and we're going to find out. But I tell everybody all the time to be careful, because in Milwaukee, for instance, it's taking advantage of that last minute voter registration that they have in Wisconsin. It's one of the reasons why it's such a pain in the butt to poll. And they love it. And they register tons of people, in that final week. But man, it's a little ridiculous. Bottom line, however, is that I really think that ultimately both Lake, Hovda, and then even others, when you look at Mike Rogers, they underperformed Donald Trump. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is, in the case of Lake, she's just an unfortunate victim of the party being a bunch of backstabbing traitors that regular voters do not trust. See, this is something we cannot let get lost here in Donald Trump's very deep and very it's a big win. I mean, he improved in 49 states. He has the most diverse coalition out of any Republican president ever. I mean, he did the best with Hispanics in the history of exit polls. So we don't know if any other Republican candidate ever done better, because we didn't have exit polls going back all that way. It was a very big win. And yet we did see it in the polling all along. We told everybody this all along, that his coalition is not necessarily going to translate to you. Mitch McConnell, the Steve Daines, and Steve it's probably unfair for me to put him in the same basket with Mitch McConnell, but as Republicans move forward and decide who their leaders are going to be in the House and in the Senate, especially in the Senate, this has got to be remembered that Kari Lake got nothing from the National Republican Senatorial Committee. When she was running for governor, she got nothing from the Republican Governors Association. These people didn't help her. Instead, they gave it to the fat slob never-Trumper in Maryland, who never had a prayer of winning that election. Because as I have told you on your show and have told everybody forever, gubernatorial elections are not predictive of federal races. So you could be a Republican who runs very strong in a deep blue state and win easily, but it doesn't mean you're going to win a federal election. Not for president, not for Senate. Statewide federal elections are totally different, and the partisan bias and the partisan lean of the state has a lot more to do with it. But instead of giving that money to Kari Lake, instead of giving that money to Eric Hovda, he had to spend all of his own money. Sam Brown got a little bit in Nevada. They gave it to Larry Hogan. They gave it to all of these other people. This is not like Trump winning is not good enough, because voters don't trust the Republican Party the same way they trust Donald Trump. And that really, really applies to the young voters that he turned, to the Hispanic voters that he turned, to the black voters that he turned, and to the white working class voters who only show up for Donald Trump. They got another thing coming if they take this election as an affirmation of them. All of these leaders got to go. And listen, I'm not, someone who, Frank, you know me now. It's like whoever the best person is for the job is the best person for the job. But listen, this is a no-brainer. Rick Scott not only represents a state that is probably the most I'm talking about demographically, the most representative of the Trump coalition, but he actually wins those voters too. So it's like a no-brainer who should lead the Senate. It should not be some old white guy, slave bitch of the military-industrial complex from one of the Dakotas. Like, it's unbelievable. And it's not that I got anything against them, don't get me wrong. But that period, that era has got to be over. Or else Republicans can be laughing right now like Democrats are all alone in the wilderness, but it won't last. And by the way, sometimes a party is at its will be at its best after it finds itself lost in the wilderness, leaderless, rudderless. There's still tons of talent in there. Ruben Gallego is one of them. Josh Stein is another one. Shapiro's another one. They are filled with talent. They were just run by a bunch of old dinosaurs who are clueless and woke, and they got ran off the road for it. But that could happen to Republicans too if they don't hear what the voters are telling them. I'm telling you, Frank, mark my words. If they do not deliver on the Trump agenda, they will be punished severely by the American public.
But you see, that's what I don't get about Arizona in particular. Carrie Lake and
$100 million in negative ads, though, Frank.
But still,
because again, it matters.
But she has been so close and in agreement with Donald Trump on so much in a very public way. And when it comes to voting, whether it be early voting, absentee balloting, or actually showing up on that day, they're all on the same ticket. I don't see how somebody can say, okay, Donald Trump, and I'm going to stop right there when Carrie Lake is right there, especially for the sole reason knowing that if you believed that Trump has a chance of doing anything and you want him to be moderately successful, you know he's going to need any kind of a Senate majority to have a chance. I just don't see how so many, over 150,000 people said, I'm good.
I'm telling you, I'm not saying Democrats didn't pull anything. Democrats cheat. That's who they are and what they do. But like Donald Trump can, show you that can be overcome. She clearly ran too far behind. And I'm telling you because we're immersed in this stuff and it's hard for us to see that other people can separate that. Ruben Gallego did not run away from Donald Trump. He didn't criticize Donald Trump. Most of these Democratic Senate candidates embraced him in the Rust Belt and the Sun Belt. Of course, I'll work with Trump on the border. Of course. I mean, normal people, normies who have, low to maybe not them, maybe low vote history, let's say that. And they come out in presidential elections. They're not going to be schooled on this stuff, though, or even as partisan as those of us who are in this business and pay attention to it all the time. And I know it sounds crazy, but in 2020, Martha McSally was running like 7 points behind Donald Trump constantly. And we actually identified the group of people it was. These were like men who were middle-aged, and I wouldn't say middle-aged, 30 to like 54. They called themselves moderate to conservative, and they were independents. If you asked them which way they leaned more, typically they would say things like neither party, or they would say something like, maybe I lean a little to the right. But Trump was stomping Biden with this group by like 30 points. And yet Martha McSally was fighting to a draw with Mark Kelly, and she wound up losing by a margin. She didn't run as far behind Trump as Carrie Lake's going to do here. But also, again, I really can't stress, like, those people are not immersed in it like we are. And when you're Kerry, I think the first round in the governor's race, she was, the subject of like 50 million negative ads. And now again, she just ran against Gallego, who outraised her by a disgusting amount. It does matter. It does. And she's barely going to lose, Frank. I mean, remember the polls showed her down by double digits. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that? I mean, there were polls out there like Gallego plus 16. It was insane. And it worked. It has an effect. It's sad, but it does.
Jay, do you have anything on this?
Well, what I hear Rich saying is that the thing to take away here is that Trump's coalition, this diverse coalition that you just explained, is potentially temporary. If this coalition starts to see the remnants of the Bush, Cheney, Romney dynasty, which Mitch McConnell is doing his best to ingrain in the Senate after he's gone, that if they start to see that, they're not Republican voters. They're giving Donald Trump a chance because they see the change they seek in him. But this coalition is temporary, and we have to do something to sort of shore up the back door, or else this is going to be a very short-lived victory. And as Rich also said, the Democrats will have had time to figure out what their best strategy is to convince these people to come back home where they may be considered home. And so again, this coalition may be temporary at best.
Well, I was talking to Rich about
100%. 100%.
It was like 2 appearances ago, Rich. We were I think that the main topic of the story of the night was characterizing Donald Trump as actually the first really successful third party run. Yeah. It's just that it was it had all the trappings of the GOP and GOP fundraising and whatever the hell else. But they begrudgingly gave him those nominations. They weren't as blatantly subversive and seditious as the DNC, and they don't. That's it. But That's the biggest question I always have is what comes after Trump, because it's not even like he's going to have any kind of a really lasting residue with this party. There are people who felt something here, and it's going to be
well. So here's a thought, Rich, and for both of you. One thing that I thought, one way that he could really endear himself to these people who are truly seeking change is a little bit of disclosure early on. You know, people
Without a doubt.
people are
Drop
looking
a bomb, a big bomb,
yes,
right away.
Yes,
And I'm talking about like the Kennedy papers or
Rich,
something.
we're on
I'm
this-
not kidding.
this is
that something like that would go huge, Jay. Would be huge. It would.
exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the Kennedy assassination. I'm thinking 9/11, which is a little bit more timely. You know, we need to so that he can say, listen, the government has lied to you and it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. Trust the public to be able to handle the disclosure. That would go miles to bringing these people together. Rich, I could not agree more. On the same page. I think that would be a way. And then of course, the border and economy, but that stuff can be more slow moving and it's not as quick to garner the kind of rallying cry that they may need to retain this sort of coalition. So I think something like that would be very effective.
And especially if somebody like Kash Patel is not, is in Mike Pompeo's old seat or something like that, it could move very quickly. And this is, and by the way, and a key point here would have to be, it would have to be done without the objections of the Bush wing of the party, whispering in the background, oh, that was irresponsible of him. Oh, don't do it, Mr. Like Pompeo did behind closed doors in his last administration. That stuff cannot happen anymore. And I just, I don't want to take too much of history here, but Republicans as a party had a chance to take the Reagan voter, especially even after he was done with the Bush years, the first Bush Senior. They only voted for Herbert Walker Bush because Ronald Reagan asked them to vote for Herbert Walker Bush. He went out there. The guy was down. He was getting clobbered by Michael Dukakis. I know a lot of people probably don't remember this, aren't old enough to remember it. Michael Dukakis had double-digit leads on this guy. Ronald Reagan gets up in the convention and says, give him a chance, right? And then what did he say that after Reagan gave his speech? He comes out and he says, read my lips. No new taxes, right? What is the first promise he breaks? Taxes. He raises taxes. I mean, and then from that point on, the Reagan coalition was gone, right? From Saginaw, Michigan to Macomb County, all the way to, gosh, look at the last time that Republicans won those northeastern counties that Trump won this time in Pennsylvania was Ronald Reagan. This is how it's incredible.
Well,
if you overlay Wisconsin with Reagan's win, how similar it will be if you overlay the map in 2024 over the 88
that's
map.
interesting.
84 map, excuse me.
That's
It's
very
incredible.
interesting there, Rich, because I was just about to ask a question about. See, right there with with Reagan, we're talking about 40 years, and now we look at this situation where we had so much happen in the last 4 years, and I wanted to ask you about this in particular. Now, when we look at the 312 electoral college votes versus 226, and most importantly, millions of votes in the edge for the popular vote, where we're talking about as of today, there's about 71 million votes for Harris. That's still a little bit under, with 10 million.
72.1 we're at now, just under 72.2.
So just about 10 million.
Not getting much higher, brother.
Gone. So, this is it. I guess the big question is, and everybody's asking it from different points of view. The left, they're really struggling with a lot of cognitive dissonance right here. They've come up with theories that Elon Musk and Starlink have stolen 10 million votes. I know everybody else is like, guys, come on. Are you seriously not seeing this? I'm just going to throw it at you. What does 2024 tell us about 2020?
I actually am going to have something on this very soon. And I could tell you guys it didn't matter if we were polling state of Pennsylvania, the state of Michigan, or nationally. We explicitly ask about vote history, and we do something other pollsters don't do, which is called matching to the voter file or a data append. Some do, some don't. If they did, then they would get a robust vote history that they could confirm with what the voter who's being interviewed is telling you. All I could tell you guys is this. We could only account for about a third of the people who voted in 2020. The other ones are not oh, I voted last time, but now I'm not voting. It basically, and I know it's going to be a little bit more elaborate of an argument, but the conclusion that's going to be drawn here is that 2/3 of the vote that we are not going to see in 24, that was 2020 only vote, meaning they don't have any other vote history or not within the last 4 rolling cycles. We don't know who these people are. We don't know like whether or not there's just too many change of address flags for people who don't know what that is. It's like, and by the way, this time what happened? I mean, I'll explain what a change of address flag is in telling this story. Republicans were much more proactive this year. So in Bucks County, for instance, a Democratic firm, we all heard about the one that was Arizona based, that's under investigation now by 4 district attorneys. And there's another one. And they were going around knocking on doors to confirm that so-and-so still did not live at the address, right? What was the point of that? The point was that they wanted to make sure that nobody was going to request an absentee ballot if they themselves took that ballot and filled out a vote, which is illegal. It's a felony, an absentee ballot affidavit, which allows them to mail that to another address. It's you saying, Frank, I no longer live at 123 Cherry Street. Right. That's my voter record, but please mail my absentee ballot to ABC Street. Okay. It's me. I'm swearing under penalty of perjury, blah, blah, blah. They don't check that crap in a lot of these states. And they just sent the ballot out. And they did that in 2020 everywhere. Right. And if you were telling people, look, again, they were more proactive this time. So I think that mattered a lot here, Frank. I really do. Like Republicans, once that stuff happens, it's too late. You cannot remove those votes, even if you can prove that they're bogus. How many stories this time did we see that but when those operations started, maybe 4 or 5 ballots in one county got through, but then Republicans caught it. It got shut down. Like that happened a lot.
Yeah.
It happened in Michigan. It happened in Pennsylvania. It happened everywhere. Everywhere. They just got like busted beforehand this time. So, again, if you're willing to do just look at what people were willing to do this year. I mean, it's not
it obviously went only went in one direction, Rich, because Donald Trump had a very natural looking growth in his vote totals that you would see over another 4 years, a very tumultuous 4 years. I can see naturally another 1.5 million or so votes going toward it. Yeah, it seemed very natural, but it's just it's unthinkable how they threw the baby out with the bathwater and just did not. I don't know what the hell they thought they were going to be able to reproduce. They must have been so desperate.
Look, how baffled was John Ralston that the culinary unions were not running around and willing to do things that they did for Biden in 2020. And I actually spoke to you about this, I think, like 2 times before the election when we were talking. And the culinary unions are a really good example of trying to gauge what the Democratic, I don't even want to call it their ground game, because it's more like their machine. They're like, political machine. They were not willing to do for her, and I'm not sure they were going to be willing to do it for Biden either, but they weren't willing to do things that they did in 2020. And there was too much going on with the new governor there. He actually did implement several changes that were very productive. There was only one real exploit left, which was the ability to count ballots 3 days that arrive 3 days after Election Day at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which would be fine if it was postmarked correctly. But they were not. And that was the one exploit that was left. So much of the procedural exploits that we saw in 2020, those holes were closed. And it was very difficult for them to pull that crap a second time. And they're sure as hell not going to do it, Frank, for her. They're just not. By the way, look at the unions in Philadelphia. They were furious, over the moon furious that she gave all her money to Beyonce instead of the people who were loyal ground pounders for the Democratic Party and the machine. What was the result of it? The result was fewer black voters as a percentage of the overall electorate came out for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania than for Hillary Clinton, an old white lady.
Wow.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, they were 8% of the electorate in Pennsylvania in 2024. That's what it appears to be. And that was not the case, obviously, in 2016. They were much higher, usually 11, 12%. So they just weren't coming out for her. People were not feeling the love. And I think a big part of that, too, is some of that realignment. So a lot of them did come out and whoopsie voted for Donald Trump. And then others who were not quite ready to make that jump yet just decided no. And believe me, we talked to a lot of them, and they were, last minute trying to push people to get those ballots in. And we polled a lot of people who said, yeah, well, I've been knocked. I got knocked Saturday for the first. I'm talking about the Saturday before the election. I got knocked for the first time this election. I told them to pound it. I'm not voting for this woman. So, I mean, there was a lot that went wrong here, but I also think that in 2020, the difference was there were other people that would make sure that gentleman's vote got counted one way or the other, and they were not doing that this year.
It's just such a, when you say to that extent, we're talking, 10 million
well,
is staggering.
Let's be honest. They always cheat. Yeah, they always do.
And they can't put two and two together. Rich, obviously you are a man of science, and but in my as a layman myself over here on, I think it was election night, or at least the next day, I simply the thoughts I cobbled together were, if the electoral map in 2020 was legitimate, then the electoral map of 2024 would be impossible. I mean, it just, 81 million souls. 81 million
still almost lost, Frank. And they still almost lost. So they take comfort in that, folks. Everybody home, take comfort in that. They still almost lost. They couldn't, put up a comfortable margin, even though look at how many more votes. Actually, Georgia is a great example. In Georgia, because there were isolated areas where we did beat 2020's turnout. Georgia's a great example of that. Pennsylvania is not that shy. It's like all of these other places. Barnes and I had studied this after 2020. It's like if you could find it in, let's say, southwestern Ohio, and I know it wasn't that competitive in 20, but if you could find this excessive use of vote by mail, which is what was really the strongest relationship with higher turnout, was the higher use of vote by mail, which should tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
But if they did it in southwestern Ohio, it was like across the border in Kentucky, they were still doing it in the suburbs. I mean, I just think they had a bunch of crazy left-wing activists just popping votes in the mail, man. I'm talking about votes that did not belong to them. Like, we know there are change of address flags where they're low-hanging fruit. They're a plague on our voter records. We don't do a good enough job keeping up with them. And if you're going to be somebody who's, devious, if you're going to be somebody who's up to no good, that's a low-hanging fruit, because if you take those ballots, you're very, very likely to not have to worry about somebody else requesting one. And that person's not going to end up on Fox News going, when I went to go vote, my ballot was already requested by somebody. I didn't do that. Who did that? That won't happen, because those people are gone. They no longer live at that record. They probably moved to Florida or something, or probably moved to Texas, and they're long gone. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, Frank. I mean, there's no way I'm going to sit here and look into the camera at everybody listening and everyone watching at home and say with a straight face that Democrats didn't cheat in 2020. Of course they did. And they cheated this year too. They just didn't have the ability to cheat at that level in 2020.
And Rich, do you think, sorry, Frank, do you think that the reason for the cheating in states where they knew they weren't going to win was to protect that very, very important popular vote, which finally this year they lost? In other words, to hang on to that, well, he's illegitimate because he didn't win the popular vote, and that's the reason we can get rid of the Electoral College. Would that explain the reason that they would cheat in a state that they otherwise know they would lose?
Yeah, I think they also, too, just had a lot of people straight up fanatical. It's like you can't... because they kind of outsource this bad behavior. if you tell everybody that somebody's Hitler and he's completely to blame for COVID, he's to blame for everybody dying right now, and he's just an evil person, you can't target that message to like just the battleground states, right? So this is something that's getting cranked out in mainstream media over and over again. It's going to fall in the ears of people who are in red states, blue states, right? It's just going to be everywhere. Now, it may not always be receptive, but if you were somebody who was like educated white woman in the suburbs of Philadelphia and it scared you, then it probably scared the woman who's in the suburbs of like Louisville. You know what I mean? Like same thing. Even though it's not a competitive state, that woman who now is sitting home, goes to the mailbox, and especially unsolicited vote by mail, if that was implemented in the states like it was in many in 2020, you may get 3-4 ballots that belong to somebody else that used to once upon a time live at your address, who no longer do anymore. And because you've been told all this, you're much more willing now to do something stupid, like go ahead and request those ballots, even though those people they're not there anymore. Those are not legitimate. That's another thing. People have to understand that unsolicited vote by mail was basically shut down almost everywhere. So we had it rampant in 2020. And I mean, I got pictures from people all over the country. I have my own friend who left California, left Beverly Hills for Phoenix, but the house is still in Beverly Hills. He got 4 ballots for his family over in Beverly Hills. And he also got not only his ballots in Phoenix, but the ballots of the people he bought the house from.
My God.
So it was like, and if you're look, remember, you guys remember Reality Winner? She was I mean, think about it. If you have twisted the brain of somebody like Reality Winner, who's willing to risk her job and her liberty to leak something that's going to hurt Donald Trump because she doesn't think she's doing a bad thing. She thinks she's actually doing a good thing, right? By leaking sensitive information. If you're Michael Wolff, who's a longtime fixture, was in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, and you're willing to give up your reputation, your job, your everything just to leak something to the New York Times because, again, you think Trump's Hitler, then how much of a stretch is it really to come to the conclusion that they deluded a bunch of people all around the country and they were willing to do something too? Which was mail-in ballots that don't belong to them.
Well, it's also testament to the protection they feel that they have. Every time that we see a
right, are they going to get in trouble, Frank? Come on,
right? That's it. Well, okay,
clear, brother.
So I have one more question about the actual electoral map. It's speculative question, and then we can get into just a couple other things that I'm really interested in hearing your opinion about, especially a question I know Jay has about your methodology and the phrasing of questions and how people you poll. But along the way, over the last week or so, there's been quite a few people who have called attention to one particular thing. Elon Musk has done it. I saw this particular one from Liz Joy, who is a former candidate in over here in United States in New York for United States Congress. And here's what she put out there. Let me put it up on screen. Here you go.
On screen? Okay,
says,
let me see.
The case for proof of voter identification. Kamala Harris won 18 states as well as Washington, D.C. 17 out of these 19 wins do not require any form of voter ID. Obviously, Donald Trump won Pennsylvania. There was a large effort in Pennsylvania, but 17 out of 19 states that were won by Kamala Harris, people are pointing out there's no voter ID, and there is, that's. What do you think as far as this goes? If you were to snap our fingers and go with paper ballots and showing ID at the day of the polls or whatever the hell it is, or have, good identification for even absentee ballots, that's always been pretty secure. Do you have any reason to believe a sizable number of these states would flip?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, I've said this, I've told them this personally and privately. He needs an election integrity commission. He needs a group of members it doesn't have to be bipartisan. I didn't mean that. Bicameral. So in other words, whether it both in the House and in the Senate, to deliver him a report, and then they need to push some kind of legislation to to reform our voting systems. Now, I know that states have that constitutional authority, but they already threw that under the bus in 2020. So that's number one. Number two, I mean, my answer to that would be Bergen County, New Jersey. Period. Right? So that one county prevented Jack Ciattarelli from winning the governor's race. Does not have real voter ID. Doesn't have a significant verification procedure. The same thing goes with the presidency, right? At Morris County flips to Donald Trump. Monmouth County shifts 14 points, I think it was, to Donald Trump. Maybe it's 10. Ocean County flips another, I think, 8 points to Donald Trump. And Bergen County moves by a lesser degree. All right. Why? Because there's a Democratic machine. There's no verification procedures. It's run by basically, well, I don't know if I want to portray it like that, but it's like gangster politics, bro. I mean, you know it. I mean, that's if there was, actually don't think we should use photo ID, and I'm not sure everyone here is going to agree with me, but if we can take an iPhone to open our iPhone and use our face to open an iPhone, okay, then we can easily use facial recognition or a fingerprint or something to verify that that is us. Because look, these people, election judges, and these people who work supervisors of elections and county clerks, they're not experts in handwriting analysis, folks. I mean, they're not really they're doing their best job to be able to see whether or not that signature matches. I've actually heard accounts of people who it is them and the person mistakes them for not who they say they are because they don't think the signature looks quite right. I fought with somebody in 2012 casting my ballot in Florida over that. She didn't think my signature looked right, and it was because I'm signing on a stupid tablet. It's ridiculous, right? Yeah. So I hate to bust everybody's, you know what, if they're worried about privacy. It's believe me, if you're willing to give it to Tim Cook, they already got it. Okay. So it's not like we're going in some database, like this is a gun buying database or something like that. This is something that we can easily do as the most supposedly technologically advanced society, a nation in the world. We should be able to do that to secure our elections. And if we did that, I'm telling you, to answer, just to get to the heart of your question, if we did that, they would have a very difficult time winning another election in many of these places, Frank. I mean, that's not, and not there. Look, there are some states that are very blue, but I'm talking about overall with the map. If Republicans do what we were talking about in the very first segment, if they adopt the Trump agenda, if they really finally stop fighting this evolution into a America First party, then we won't be talking about, some of the battleground states that dominated the conversation this time. Next time we'll be talking about New Jersey. Next time we'll be talking about Connecticut. That's the difference. That really is the difference.
Okay. Speaking of, well, actually, I want to go to Jay on this one.
Sorry about that.
This is something that I brought up a day or so afterwards. The media immediately, actually even that night, we start seeing it from people like John King on CNN and a few others. They immediately started going into the county breakdowns, the district breakdowns in places like Georgia and everywhere else, and they started really categorizing people by and making insinuations about levels of intelligence based on their education. I want to give this to Jay because this is something very near and dear to him because it relates in a lot to what he does. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, Rich, I mean, I've been watching you for a long time, and it's funny because I feel like I've had this conversation with you, except you weren't actually participating in the conversation. I was, but essentially what we're talking about here is the educated vote, right? The educated voter. And yes. I knew during the election this was going to get used as a cudgel because, and I've seen it from PhDs, from other academics, and then I've seen it just from lay people who are saying the Democrats have to stop worrying about the educated people. We have to appeal to the idiots of this country, right? We already have the educated people. And I guess the reason I'm bringing this up to you, because I want to get your opinion, but I also think you're uniquely positioned to help change this sort of Orwellian speak, right? We often think of Orwellian as Big Brother, but I think it's the manipulation of language. And the Democrats have sort of taken over this word, educated voter, and I don't like the term because I think more aptly would be
credentialed.
Exactly the word I was going to use, the credentialed voter, because that doesn't have you could say indoctrinated, but that obviously carries negative connotations. Yep. But credentialed is just simply a benign term to represent somebody because, as we know, education can come in many forms. It's not right to say someone is educated and therefore, but Rich, that held me in my political stance for a long time because I kept saying to myself, but the educated people are voting for so-and-so, for Hillary, for Obama. So I must be missing something. And that, it took me a while to break through. In fact, it took me till grad school, till I got a master's degree to sort of maybe undo some of that indoctrination and learn actually how to think rather than what to think. And I actually even heard on a recent show where you said that master's degree actually broke more favorably to Trump. So I feel like we've got to start to reclaim that word, and maybe using the word credentialed could permeate the industry, and it would be more accurate, and it would sort of take away that weapon that they continue to use against us.
Jay, I hate this separation of educated, non-educated Americans and voters in this country. I've always hated it. I have told Charlie Kirk and others in independent media, whether they're right or not, whether they could be even like center left people like Tim Pool. I've told him, Tim, use the word credentialed, okay? Stop using the term educated, because they know what you're saying. You're like, so your experience, they know that's the case, and they were hoping to keep you on the plantation, on the mental plantation, by using terminology like that. Words are powerful, right? Nobody wants to be along with the non-educated folk on the other side of the track, right? It sounds like you're so dumb. And I've always hated that, because separating people like that, number one. Number two, I am obviously college educated, but even if I wasn't, I'd still be smart, right?
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of people that have a college degree who are dumb. And I know a lot of people who don't, who are brilliant. And I cannot stand, I just feel like it's an incorrect classification, but it is also one to mentally enslave us. It is. That is the goal of why they do that. So I like to try to say, and sometimes I veer away, but you'll hear me say something like professional class if I don't say credentialed, because the truth is, and you were watching the national poll, especially the final rounds, but you could see it the whole year. Trump wasn't just doing better with certain voters that were like the remnants of the working class Democratic coalition. So he was going to do moderately better with them. You could see it. It was a few points he was going to do better with the working class, but it was so much more than that. The real movement was among those who did have a college degree or in the professional class. So, that's where the movement was. Biden was, in our polling in 2020, it was not uncommon for Biden to be killing Trump, like 65-35, 70-30, maybe even a little bit more, 72, whatever. Could be 70-30. Let's call it 70-30. It was not uncommon for those margins among those who had a 4-year degree or higher to come back that favorable to Joe Biden. And yet you could see it clear as day running up to this election. Yes, Harris was still going to carry them, but she was not going to carry them by 30 points. She was going to carry them by like 11. And sure enough, look at the exit polls. I mean, you had Harry Enton falling all over himself trying to explain it to people the other day. Steve Kornacki comes out on the Sunday shows on NBC, tries to explain to all of them as well, like, this is real. He actually, yes, sure, he did 3 points better with those who don't have a college degree, but guess what? He did 18 points better here. He did 11 points better. So, I mean, I feel like we should change that terminology, especially now that we have everybody's attention, because we do.
Yeah, it seems like that coalition then is part of it, and it's that's another part of the realignment, is that people who are, educated or credentialed actually can break in the direction that also includes the people who are moving in the direction of more common sense. That's really good to know, and I guess maybe now the reason I'm bringing it up to you is because I feel like, again, you're uniquely positioned to give it that nudge that it needs, and if we could change that vernacular, I mean, I think we're really onto something.
Here it is.
I'll
right there.
promise myself to even do better. I will.
This is the educated.
I'll be listening for it, Rich.
There's the educated voter right there. 85 IQ to 15. That's the educated voter. That's the midwit.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Salenterate is just like, okay, Donald Trump, let's do it. And then the Jedi sage is like, yes, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And
That's so funny.
Oh,
But
man.
look at he won Bucks County, which no Republican has done since I believe 1988. And Bucks County is always very close. It is technically a swing county, but he won it this time. And it's like, well, why is that important? If you look at a place, Buckingham lower 1, Buckingham lower 2. And now I'm getting really granular here, but this is how much this is how granular we get during election night. This is Buckingham Township. which is in Bucks County. Lower one is certainly more professional class. Trump actually lost it by a couple of hundred votes in 2020. And then lower two is more working class. I think that's fair to say. And looking at those numbers, I was wondering, trying to gauge, like, if Trump draws, comes basically fights it to a tie in lower one, then I know our polling was right. And it's not only because that he's doing better in lower two, so I know he's doing a little bit better with the working class. But if he does better in lower one, then I know the polling was right, and he's doing better with professional class people. Folks, the CEO of Merck lives there. These are pharmaceutical professionals that live all through that area of Bucks. And not only did he fight it to a draw and close it, he won Buckingham lower one. So it's like, and turnout was higher than in 2020 in both of those two Buckingham township precincts. It was like 92 and 93% turnout respectively. Wow. So it just tells you, like, that's when you're looking at a couple of thousand voters on, in the data, and you can tell how many of them changed their minds. They legitimately changed their minds. They voted for Biden in 20, and then in 24, they said, nope, I was wrong. I'm going with Trump.
And that
is incredible.
And the crazy thing is that they probably didn't tell any of their friends in that county, but everybody.
I guarantee no.
Here's what happened. Later on that night, everybody at their house in that county was watching the results come in. They all saw the county go on red, and they know that probably all their other friends did it too. I wonder how many of them said, "Hey, listen, how did you vote?"
Hey, man.
I wonder how many after the fact actually.
Vote for Trump, man.
Yeah, it had to be something like that. Rich, I got one more question for you, and then I'll just we can just start with some parting shots here. But you already addressed the danger of the Republican Party at large identifying with the popularity of the candidate Trump, and really not being able to be introspective about this and planning for the future. You already got into that. So when I ask you about the Senate and the House, all the leadership shenanigans going on right now, I just want to know if you have any inside baseball. I heard that there might be a push sometime this week to get Mike Johnson replaced as House Speaker. Then, of course, we have all the Senate leadership stuff that's going on there. Do you have any inside baseball on this? We know what's at stake. We know if they screw up these first 2 years, I mean, they're cooked. They're cooked.
They're cooked. This is why it's like everybody's celebrating, and I don't know what the hell you're celebrating. You won an election. That's like the start of winning coalitions. Like, they gave you a chance. From here on out, you really cannot make any mistakes, because your majority in the House is not going to be big. And by the way, I don't know who's advising Donald Trump to pluck so many people out of the Congress, but Democrats do better in special elections. So if you want to keep your House majority, you'll knock this shit off right now. All right, go get people in the business community like you said you were going to. Stop plucking somebody from an R+1 or R+2 district, because Democrats will outperform in a special election and you could lose that seat. All right, so I just wanted to say that. But the inside baseball is, you have some of these new people coming in. I don't want to blow anybody up, but Dave McCormick, who thinks that John Thune helped him so very much, so he owes it to him to vote for him. He is technically undecided as of right now, but I know people who have been talking with Dave, and Dave was, as of last night, leaning towards Thune, and then publicly saying he was undecided. That's not true. Well, I'm here to tell you that is true, and this is the kind of crap that's got to get killed in the crib right now. All right, first of all, Dave, even if if they don't take this, if they don't steal this seat from you, which I don't think they will or can, I don't think they have the votes. But you would not be a U.S. senator if it wasn't for Donald Trump. Exactly. If he was not on the ballot, you would have lost to Bob Casey, and that would be it. Okay, brother? All right, I don't care how many of your millions you spent, it would have went down. Piss down the damn toilet bowl, and you'd be the loser right now. All right, so just remember that when you go to cast that vote. I mean, this is Mike Johnson's and I don't want to say it's his reckoning yet. What's going to happen, from as I understand it, is that there's not really enough MAGA and other like fire breathers to get rid of Mike Johnson yet, but there will be kind of like a reinstatement of the Gates rule. It won't be like as easy as like when Gates was able to just get rid of Kevin McCarthy and bring business to a halt, but there will be, as far as I understand, I don't know all of the details yet. I'm just talking to a congressman that I know. And they're going to be part of a group that pushes him to give them concessions that if he does screw up, because why is he vulnerable right now? The real reason is he underperformed and he didn't raise enough money. Democrats had a 3-1 average advantage in the battleground in what, let's call it roughly 40 races that we looked at that were considered toss-ups or, within toss-up range. The Democratic candidates had a 3-1 spending and fundraising advantage over Republicans. So Kevin McCarthy was really good at raising money, but he was awful at everything else. Mike Johnson is not a fundraiser. He's not good at this. So he's vulnerable right now, and he's going to have no choice but to accept the terms that are going to be laid out to him. Getting rid of him, I don't think that's going to happen. But this is why I didn't want Mike to be the speaker to begin with. He had a great voting record. I would have rather him just continue to be a solid, like, blue collar Republican from the South. He had a very blue collar voting record. Now making him a speaker just put a target on his back and made him the blame for everything that's not even in his total control. I'm not a huge fan of him as a speaker, but I was a fan of him as just a voting member of Congress. I would have rather Kevin McCarthy got all the blame until there was an actual backup plan to install consensus candidate that was more MAGA. But they didn't. They pointed the gun and pulled the trigger before they ever had a target. And here we are. So Mike Johnson's it. I would caution people, you get rid of him, you're going to get somebody worse. I'm telling you. And like who can get those votes? I don't know. I wish that was different, but it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, right immediately, the Senate leadership fight, guys, is huge because Frank, you just said it. They have 2 years. So let's cut the crap. They got 2 years. You better just assume that you're going to get shellacked in the first term, midterm. You probably will. Democrats are not going to be in the wilderness forever. They will pick up the pieces. They'll do what all parties do. Sometimes the best thing for them is to lose badly so they can then, have conduct some introspection. Doesn't look like they're willing to do it yet, but they will. And I'm telling you, Republicans cannot afford to not have their act together or to continue with this identity crisis. Like, listen, the military-industrial complex and John Thune and John Cornyn, who got booed off his own state party stage. You're going to elect somebody who can't even show his face at a state party event because they will throw food at him and spit at him and boo him off a stage? Unbelievable. That's one of the most Republican areas, even in it was a friendly area. John O'Shea went to that event. I mean, this is like not MAGA fire breathing. It's textbook Texas Republican State Party, and he's not even welcome there. So, I mean, come on. What I'm saying, the party doesn't have time for this stupidity. Like, that is clearly stupid. John Thune, what's his argument? Oh, it's my turn. Americans are over the "it's my turn" argument. Okay, they are over the hierarchy, or what Jefferson used to call, artificial aristocracy. They are over that crap, and that's not going to be good enough. And if Republicans buckle to it, because he's got a lot of IOUs in the bank. If they do it, then they deserve their own fate. Because look at Mike Garcia. By the way, Mike, what do you got going on after Congress? You gonna maybe go work as a defense contractor yourself? I mean, this is what they all do, set themselves up for all this crap, go be a lobbyist. This guy called me a dumbass, Frank, because I pointed out to him that the Central Valley and Southern California is getting more Trumpy, but it is not getting more Republican. And if they don't stop with the Ukraine first agenda and be actually concerned with the needs of the American public, and at that time we were talking about inflation being out of control and he's sending 50 more billion to Ukraine. He called me a dumbass, a dumbass. Well, look at you now, Mike. For those who don't know, he lost.
Good for him. Because you said Ukraine.
I couldn't give two shits less. Let me just make this clear. Everyone's like, "Oh, Rich, why are you being so hard on him? It's not good. We want a bigger majority." I'm like, what's this we crap? My Loyalty is to the voters that I speak with and communicate with on a daily basis. Today, the Democratic Party is their biggest threat. If tomorrow the Republican Party becomes their biggest threat, then they will have another enemy. They will have a new enemy in me. Don't give me this we crap. There's no R after my name, okay? I am for the public that we speak with. My job is to convey their wishes. And anyone who doesn't do that and works against them is going to get my ire. And that is how this works. The we nonsense.
Yeah. There's a lot of that, and it's like numbers and majorities don't matter unless if the majority is made up of scoundrels, and
that's right.
That's it. But you said something there real quick about Ukraine first, and there's a lot of interesting nominations for cabinet positions that are being put out there. Right? I heard about John Ratcliffe for CIA. We've been hearing about RFK. Where
I do like John. I do know him. I know John. I like John.
He's, that would be interesting. And for a couple of days, they were floating the idea of Kash Patel. But aside from RFK and Massey, me and Jay are going to talk about this in the second half. But real quick. When I heard Marco Rubio, speaking of Ukraine first, he and Victoria Nuland, I'll think about that canned biolab interaction that they had together a couple of years ago forever. It'll be in my mind. When I hear about him for Secretary of State, it makes me sick, and then I start thinking, oh man, do I ever hope that this is Donald Trump appointing him to Secretary of State so he can pull him out of the Senate and then fire him as Secretary of State? And just I because damn, that's out of all the people.
I don't know if something's going on here where they're like jockeying, because you may have noticed that Rubio announced his support for Rick Scott as the Senate Majority Leader. There may be some like back scratching going on here.
Okay, I didn't know that.
For this, jockeying for that. Yeah, he did, and he's going to push him for it. So, I am worried. I know a lot of people that I know were like up and down, but Rubio and I have rubbed horns in the past and been since he was running against Charlie Crist in the primary for U.S. Senate. It's been that long. I don't think you can take your eye off the guy for a second. He does whatever's politically expedient, and I don't like that. So I'm just being real. There were a lot of others. Rick Grinnell would have been a much better Secretary of State, in my opinion. I don't know what the hell you're doing. See, this is what I'm talking about. Look, Rubio is from a diverse state. Florida probably does not have a second when it comes to one singular state that represents the Trump coalition. It probably is the quintessential one because it has a little bit of everybody. It does. It's just completely diverse, and from age to race to creed to education, professional, credentialed, non-credentialed, right? It's got it all. So I understand that, and you probably are going to get rewarded. The state of Florida and the people there have long supported Trump and been like a stalwart, except for Ron DeSantis, of course, but you know what I mean. So I'm not surprised to hear that. I just personally a little disappointed. I would have rather seen Rick, who I know was up for it as well, and I think Rick Grinnell would have done a better job. Plus, again, I feel like Rick is just more MAGA, and it's like you want to reach these new constituencies, and when you're picking your cabinet, you better make sure that is giving the people you're picking or sending a message that I know you voted for me. I know you put your faith in me. And look at the people I'm surrounding myself with. I'm not going to let you down. That's the message that those people should convey. And I'm not sure Marco Rubio does that. I'm sorry. I just don't.
Well,
and
we'll
number two, I would like to see less people that are just playing Washington musical chairs. I want to see more private sector people. Yes. I love the idea that, I don't know if you guys saw this, it was just kind of announced, but Vivek and Elon Musk will be basically given a mandate to come in. It's a department that deals with government crap, waste, and management. And they're going to come in and they have the mandate.
Oh, the Doge mandate?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And if they do that, that's music to my ears. Yeah. It really is. I'm not sure about the treasurer pick yet. We'll see. I honestly don't know enough about him to criticize him one way or the other. But I would like to see some bolder bolder stuff
Well,
here.
that's
And
what-
I want RFK to go in and just take an absolute
Oh,
wrecking ball,
dude.
corrupt FDA,
I want-
which is just trash.
Bull.
I don't think the American public understands what the FDA does.
They don't.
They don't go over and like check the homework of these drug manufacturers that are like giving them applications and making sure that what the drug manufacturer is saying and doing. And they're not double checking their work, folks. They're basically just paperwork processors. And when they do run into a problem, like Purdue Pharma did, they ran into a stickler of an overseer who was approving that application. They stuck a couple millions in his pocket, and he let OxyContin go through with the phony claim that it's less addictive than other opiates. And that's all the FDA does. I mean, we act as if it's this agency that we can't live without. It's ridiculous, Frank.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There's a lot to be seen, and like you said, right now it is it's all about that Senate jockeying that's going on there, as you said. So we'll see how that works out. And Rich, I'm sure that we're going to be able to check in along the way. But tonight, these were most of the most incredible, the biggest underlying issues and unanswered questions. Jay, real quick, is that all you had over there?
Yeah, man. I just want to say, I mean, that rant with the no R after your name, you represent the voters. That's what I meant when I opened this show up with you. That's what I meant. It is, I do the same thing when I defend certain things in the nutrition field, health sciences field. I represent the data. I don't represent a thing. It's the truth, and that's the way it is. And, again, just keep doing what you're doing, man. It matters so much.
Thank you so much for that, Jay. I really appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you guys again. And I promise that'll always be my priority. I think sometimes people get a little messed up, but I'll set them straight every time, brother.
Good boy.
All right. Well, you have yourself a good night. Send the best to Laura and everybody. And we'll talk soon, my friend.
Of course, right back at you. Say hello to everybody over on your side of the block too, my friend.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Goodbye. There you go. There is Rich Baris. That's the director of Big Data Poll, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know the director?
You do now.
You do now. My gosh. You know, I'm not even going to go to I'm not even going to go to the intermission.
We're just gonna fly right through. No commercial breaks, folks.
I don't want. I mean, there's just too much.
I know.
There's too much going on right now, and I'd like to bring I'll bring on some calls too. I'd like to bring that up, but yeah, dude.
Well, I'm glad that we're all on the same page, because I was really interested in his take on this. I feel that same way, that it's wonderful, but I felt the celebration for me lasted until the next day, and right after that, I'm already now thinking, what happens after Trump? And I'm really not putting the cart before the horse. This is what, when you remember, I'm a Patriots fan, and when Bill Belichick was winning Super Bowls, he would allow himself that moment to win a Super Bowl, but he was already planning next year's roster, immediately after. He let the players do their thing. But I feel like to some degree, we have that responsibility to start looking forward and what's going to happen if this party goes. I mean, I'm not a Republican. I've never been a registered Republican, and I probably never will be. If this party goes back to the Bushes and the Cheneys, I'm back to the lost babe in the woods.
Homeless.
Right. So if this is our third party, as we've been saying for months now, we have to take hold of it. We have to protect it, because I want nothing to do with those old guard Republicans. No, thank you. So we're going to have to see what happens, but it's nice to know that people like Rich are on board with that, and they have people's ear. So hopefully these kinds of conversations keep happening in big places.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to some super chats. Benny is first one up here. Says 3 great minds on one show tonight. Thank you, Frank. Well, thank you, Benny.
Who's the third?
I'm guessing. I'm guessing it's me.
That was an insult that could have gone anywhere.
I know. I said, just take one on the chin, Frank. Just take one on the chin. It would have been funny. It would have been funny to say, I guess Rich.
I mean,
Super happy. What's going on, Laura? Says, I've been on cloud 9 all week and may have to change my name to super duper happy.
Oh.
Thanks for the show tonight. The show on election night. It was fun sharing such a historic time with you.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah,
Same here. Car Guys New England says the studio's looking great, Frank. How does it feel being inside of it right now?
Oh, it's great. It's your favorite word? Way cozier.
I got listen. The inspiration for here will appear. I just do not want to buy shit just for the sake of shit.
No. But as I watched the broadcast last night, the first time you unveiled it, I definitely noticed we need something there. But I appreciate you taking the time and not just putting a bunch of stuff up there just to do it.
Well, because you can see how decluttered this place is, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, how focused it is.
Yep, absolutely.
And energetically, feng shui.
Ooh, you feng
talking-
shuied it?
I feel, I feel
Very
like,
feng.
oh yeah, I feel funged up. I am just nuts.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's like flowing in here. Okay, let's see here. Car Guys New England, thank you so much. Jay Brits says, happy Tuesday, Frank, and greetings, Juanita Gulinello. Listen, we're running out of male names.
Greetings.
Shotzi says, good evening, Frank and Jay. The studio looks fantastic. Thank you, Shotzi. Go take a look at the little bit of the facelift we gave to the website as well. Also, we have an amazing after hours lineup tonight. I'll get to that in just a little bit. Over on Rumble, bunch of people hanging out.
Cool.
But no rants. So you guys go hang out and do your thing. And I'll come back.
That's where I watch the show a lot, on Rumble.
Rumble?
I like it, yeah.
Yeah, well, hey, everybody's got a spot for 7 o'clock, you know? But there's only one place to see the after hour stuff, and that's on quitefrankly.tv.
Very true.
Let's see. Gold Pills, Braves Piano, thank you. Sean Joe, Kelly's Free, thank you. No thanks, Joe, says, great show as always, Frank. Thanks for all your hard, great work. God bless. Thank you, Joe. Sean Joe, Homegoy, says, I heard Trump select Alex Jones for press secretary. Is that a joke? It would be great if it's true. I think it's a joke.
Yeah, he made the joke, I think, actually. He had a picture of himself in front of some huge vehicle with a gigantic gun saying, yes, I humbly accept the nomination for press secretary.
Yeah, I saw that. That would be funny. Homegoy says, because, I would like to see bull in a china shop craziness.
With this press, you need it.
I want to see that, absolutely. Like I said, while we are concentrating on things like, for example, how do we get healthy? How do we get out of debt individually? How do we get healthy? How do we localize and personalize education again? How do we do things that nullify the dependence we had on government? How do we as individuals and growing communities, digital communities, however this information could proliferate, that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
As far as the circus that we just all took part in, I want to see bulls in china shops. I want to see RFK breaking windows. I want RFK to show up at his first day of work with a metal bat. and literally, I want him to actually break windows.
Or when Elon Musk showed up at Twitter with the sink, I mean, that's the kind of thing we need. And again, to the point that we made with when Rich was here, that I believe is not just a luxury. I believe it's a necessity in order to convince the people that gave Trump a chance that things are really going to be different. And look, I've already seen some people that I really respect already with just some of the picks saying, looks like we were, hornswoggled again. And I'm like, well, can we he's not even inaugurated yet. Can we at least, we always say we're going to judge by outcomes. Well, we have no outcomes yet. I am all on board with, with taking apart personnel and having issues with them, but I'm not going to judge Trump yet. He's not even in office yet. Give it a moment.
Not only that, it's like I said last night, again, separating the circus from real life and what is actually applicable for us. You have to lower some expectations just to keep yourself sane. If we get 10% to 25, 30% of what we hope we can get, that is a light years more than what was going to be served up to us. That's number one. Yeah. Me personally, I am not going to get bent out of shape if we don't end across the board all foreign aid, that we don't cut all entangling ties with nations like Israel or anything else like that. I want us to distance ourselves a great deal from anything that could be considered an imminent war. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Mm-hmm. But I understand where the wind blows right now, and I don't expect the greatest Band-Aids of all to be ripped off. And
Trump doesn't have a magic wand either. He's not operating in a vacuum. I mean, it's the world. The world that exists today is the world that has been handed to him. So it can't be perfect because it's not perfect. So, but yeah, not everything has to be reacted to immediately. You can have your own thoughts, but we live in a world on social media where everyone has to know your thoughts immediately. Trust me, they don't.
Right. Yeah. We do a fair amount of virtue signaling ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody virtue spirals out of control, where all of a sudden you lose your flexibility to take lemons and make lemonade.
Absolutely.
I mean that's the whole thing here.
Is it going to be better than the first term? Absolutely. It already is.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. Let's do a couple more here. Homegoy also says, I heard that Diddy list was dropped by Scott Baio today. Really?
Scott Baio? That's an interesting choice.
You know, is that what somebody
Charles
sent me?
in charge?
I think that somebody sent me something with Scott Baio. I didn't click on it, though.
Uh-oh.
I'll check it out later.
You had the Diddy list this whole time?
I had the lead. I had the lead. Ina says, great info. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ina, for being here. Robert Sarnes, thank you. Awake Not Woke is there as well. That is all the gold pills on quitefrankly.tv. Yeah, I got a text from a friend of mine. I'm just seeing this right now, unfortunately, because she said to me, and she's from Pennsylvania, if you want to mention to Rich what I uncovered before the election in 2020, I just don't know if she's comfortable with me saying her name, was what she uncovered was all the absentee ballots that they stole for duplicate votes. If you ever requested an absentee ballot, which I did a lot when I lived out of state for college, they stole your information that way. The FBI agent that she was working with told me they had 700,000 votes ready in Pennsylvania alone. They had 700,000 votes ready in Pennsylvania alone. You have to remember all the college kids who broke for Obama in 2008. That's a lot of theft. So...
Wasn't that roughly the margin he was ahead in 2020 before that 3 a.m. dump?
Oh, yeah.
He was up about 800,000 votes ahead.
I don't know if it was 800,000, but he was up by at least 500,000. Okay. At least 500,000. Yeah. And I think he ended up losing by 50,000 or less.
Right.
So they had so much bullshit they could have fed into the furnace that all they had to do was wait to see how much they needed to inject it to make it seem, oh, these were close races, 40,000 votes or whatever, 60,000 votes, spread out across 5 states flips the whole election, they were saying.
Yeah.
But was it really that close? No.
And it must, should have asked this of Rich. I mean, it must make his job. I mean, it's so hard to run with the data when the data can be manipulated in so many ways. I wonder what priority Rich would put on Donald Trump's plate to do some election integrity cleanup so that it is possible in a fair world for that party, if they continue to do the will of the people, to continue to be able to govern according to the people. I think that would be something interesting. But I'm sure that, I mean, after what happened in 2020, Donald Trump has not forgotten. So I would imagine election integrity to some degree is going to play a major role in this administration.
Well, and that's why I'm glad that we had those particular questions lined up for Rich tonight, because that was a real thing. What does 2024 tell you about 2020? Okay, and I got all the answers that I was assuming were going to be there. It's not just about how the coast to coast mailer ballots stopped and all that stuff, but there was some countries don't have standing armies that was as big as the poll watchers that were deployed. The poll watchers that were deployed, a brigade of lawyers. Like I said, the things that were going on in 2020 were stopped dead in their tracks. That's outside the fact that there was still a lot of quarantining going on.
It's crazy.
And God knows. I mean, so
it really makes you think twice, 3 times, 4 times about what was the utility of COVID, because it had nothing to do with public health, had nothing to do with anything like that. It was the most advantageous COVID was for that election theft. Period.
And just as an addendum here, my friend just got in touch with me and said yes, and that guy, I guess the FBI agent, told me 700,000 in October. That's when he said in October they had 700,000. It was that exact amount that flipped overnight. The worker with Trump lawyer who I worked with the Trump lawyer who was the attorney general in Texas, and we watched the voter rolls disappear. And obviously after a while, all these inquiries went away. That's why when people say, "Oh, all of Trump's claims were tried in court and it's like, no, you motherfucker, they were thrown out on standing.
They never made it on the merits."
And forget about the big cases that were brought there. We're also talking about tens of thousands of sworn affidavits from people like my friend who they bared witness to identity theft and fraud because it was happening to them personally. You know, this is why there was, and that is evidence, right? Sworn affidavits are evidence.
You know what's hysterical about all these clowns now is they keep saying things like, or insinuating that Trump may have stolen this election, and you don't want to look at things now, do you? And I'm like, no, you still don't get it. I absolutely want to look at things now. I absolutely want to look at things in 2020. Let's go back to all of them. Open up everything. Absolute brutal transparency, because what you're gonna what do we got here?
No, you're saying it's exactly what you're saying. This supports what you're saying.
Yeah, what you're going to find out is the fact that you probably lost more than you thought you did. It's not going to be pretty for you. So yes, open the books. See, that's the thing. They still don't get it.
Here's one person on Reddit. Where are the 20 million voters who voted for Biden in 2020? Trump got about the same votes as 2020, but Harris lost many Biden voters. That's what I'm wondering, says somebody. It doesn't make sense to me right now. How did 2024 see less voters? I'm not trying to be the other guys, but something smells so fishy here. The numbers don't make sense. With all the new galvanized voters, where are those votes at? And you can't make the connection because they had all of the authorities. The authorities were saying this was the most safe election that we ever had. And now, of course, whenever somebody is coming up with some cockamamie, completely off track theory as to what happened, I always respond to them and say, whatever. My kicker is always, but can we agree that we need to go to paper ballots and voter ID?
Right.
Because I'm waiting for them to come 180 degrees and starting to demand for voter ID now.
Yeah.
Because they think something's up.
There was a great meme that was floating around like the week or two, or maybe it was longer before the election. It's like, stop the Trump cheat, demand voter ID and paper ballots. I was like, you guys are so close. You're so close. We're going to get what we want.
I know. They all think that there's rigging going on now. But yeah, John Ratcliffe is what we hear. This is from Donald Trump's account on, I think.
That's kind of what we're all waiting
Truth.
for, the confirmation. Yeah, and I've read a lot of his stuff, and see, I like that. I like that choice.
Well, then how about this? This is an exchange between Thomas Massey and just, I think, some rando, somebody named Unhoodwinked, mangling corporate media manipulation, Unhoodwinked. Here, take a listen to this. Is from yesterday, an exchange. I'm just going to read from the top, especially for those of you who are in podcast land. Thomas Massey says the new Congress begins on January 3rd, but President Trump doesn't take office until the 20th. With majorities in the House and Senate, we should have at least a dozen bills to shrink government overreach on his desk, awaiting his signature by the first day of his term. The top response is, Thomas, can you please draft legislation, H.R. 1, to repeal the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986, particularly the clause that permits vaccine manufacturers from liability? Let's have this one ready to submit on day one of the new Congress. Let's get this done. Thomas Massey says, and you can take it to the bank, whatever, store it up there. I believe that Representative Gosar has a bill to do this, and I'm a co-sponsor. It will need to be resubmitted for the new Congress after we convene on January 3rd. So just the fact that has been put into the consciousness.
Yes.
Oh, can you imagine?
I know. Well, look, that's the holy grail because it's the most coveted and protected part of medicine. I don't understand why. I really don't, because I can't get inside the psychology. The way I was trained in science, and sometimes I forget, like I have a master's degree in science. I'm technically a scientist. My curiosity is always there. I want to get, again, like I said about the voting, ruthless transparency. But this is the one area. It's not the only area, but it's the one area that always elicits the most fiery response from the medical establishment. As if you are questioning, I don't know, the earth is
Scripture.
round. Yeah.
It's Scripture.
Yeah. I mean, and they just can't, and all we're asking for, and it's constant. The RFK is an anti-vaxxer. It's like, listen, I'm not saying all vaccines are ineffective, effective. They're not all the same. So stop putting them all under one umbrella. But second of all, he's correct in the fact that there is no study. You ask the CDC, ask any of these, midwits online. Show me that study that shows you that all of these individual inoculations are safe, not just individually, but as we consume them, like with food, in conjunction when we're giving 72 doses over a course of time. Show me that study. And they'll be like, well, it's never been done. And in fact, RFK even says they've been asked to do it and they won't do it. Why do you think they won't do it? Mm-hmm. Because they know what they're going to find. So we need to Like with food, rip everything apart to its individual constituents, figure out what works and what doesn't work, and just have a better way forward. We're not trying to necessarily, unless that's what the evidence showed, to remove and get rid of every vaccine ever made, ever, forever and ever. That's not what we're trying to do. But see, these people reduce arguments to their simplest points so that they can somehow understand it because they're not terribly bright. All we're trying to do is fix a problem, or I should even say that. I should say we're trying to identify whether a problem exists, and you won't allow that. What does that say about you?
Yeah.
You know, look in the mirror. It's incredible. I mean, like I told you about that story on MedPage Today where this doctor, Awais Durrani, says the title of his article in MedPage Today, which is like a subscription for physicians and for medical professionals. I don't even know why I bother with it anymore because it's become such a political rag. RFK Jr. threatens the very fabric of healthcare. And if you read this thing, it's like a fever dream. It's like the guy woke up in the middle of the night, soaked in sweat, and was like, "I got to write an article for MedPage Today." It's crazy talk. Just saying, like, if you open the gates on vaccines and start looking at them, you're going to cause vaccine hesitancy. Well, maybe there should be hesitancy if we open up the gates of vaccines and we find out there's things we don't like in there. Which part of this don't you understand? And at the very bottom, it says, and I read this to you because I was like, this guy sounds like a political hack. And sure enough, Awais Durrani is an emergency room physician in Houston with a background in political science. But before earning his medical degree, he worked in the Obama administration. You know, so like you can't keep the politics even out of your science, dude. Get over yourself. And not to mention the fact that, just as a side note, emergency medicine, you can ask Nurse Jenny about this, we've talked about this a million times, is completely different philosophically than what I do, than chronic care management, preventative care. It's you are trying to save a life, so you basically will do just about anything to keep a person alive. So that same drug symptom mentality does not apply to preventative medicine. But people like this, who are politically, have a parasite in their mind politically, and then also don't understand the other side of the medical equation, they can't get out of their own way. And then you look at like other articles, I could show you a million of them, like he's saying RFK is going to ruin healthcare. Here's an article from AGMC just a couple of weeks ago. U.S. healthcare system ranks last overall among other high-income countries. Like, we're failing. Healthcare is already broken. And this guy's like, we can't let anybody come in here and break it more? Like, what are you talking about?
Dude, and that goes hand in hand with the Department of Education discussions.
Exactly.
You know, you should see, I've indulged a little bit, and I've gone, I mean, there's not really much of a back and forth, but I've been commenting on people's comments when it comes to, what the hell is, what's being floated about the Department of Education having to go, which absolutely it needs to go. It should have never been there in the first place. Right. And I start realizing, and I was even talking to Sean from the SGT report today, which I think our latest episode might be out like within a day or so. But I was saying, Sean, it's so incredible to see how closely linked the education crisis is linked to healthcare, because if people are as woefully uneducated as we are right now, where we're just trained, it's like Pavlovian. Absolutely, it's all Pavlovian effect. There's no critical thinking going on. Then that is the programming that we are applying when we go out and make basic decisions on what we're eating and what we're drinking and when we're eating and drinking and what medicine we're taking or whatever the hell it is. I mean, we're working with such faulty information. And again, people are just trained into responses. And so, for example, when I saw the one of the RFK Jr. announcements that he wanted to defluoridate our water, that was a stated intent of his. One of these Twitter DNC leftist shill types was just like retweeted it and said something like, "This is ... bad," and they're a bunch of fucking ninnies.
What was the citation for that?
The citation is "This is bad." The citation is Jay. Like we said before, the government hates us, and they stumble over themselves to find new ways to show it.
That's true.
But they love our teeth.
We got to protect the enamel at all costs.
I hate these fucking people, but I could not sleep at night if I knew that their teeth were rotting.
Even one more cavity is too many cavities.
No, I hate cavities. I hate cavities. So
when that Cuomo, even one COVID death is too many. I'm like, this guy's not serious.
No, it's crazy because here's what I saw. And maybe somebody out there is being tongue in cheek about it, but there are others who are absolutely not, because again, it's all reflex at this point. I read at least a couple of people who seemed serious that said, "Are there any guidelines on how on how to properly fluoridate your own water?" So people are just like, well, if they're trying to take it away, then it must be because they're fascists, and I need to fight for my fluoride.
I must keep my pineal gland calcified.
I don't want any enlightenment. None.
What are we doing? Well, again, Frank, to your point, we wouldn't be here, wherever we are, without the media. The media has done this to people. I really do believe, I'm an optimist, and I do believe that people are far more capable than we give them credit for of working their way out of this mess themselves. And I know they are, because when I really get to talk to clients and I have enough of there's like a curve, right? There's a point where if you stay with me long enough, I have enough influence over you. And I don't mean that in like a manipulative way, but just being around me and educating you and talking to you like you are a respected member of my human race, rather than being talked down to like you are some lower class, the way the media does. Eventually, I have almost 100% of the time have removed a lot of that indoctrination, and people start to go, oh, but you need to give me the time, right? And obviously I'm only one person, so I can't do that for the world. But how do we do that for the world is my question, because I don't think you end up in the place where you must defend water fluoridation if it weren't for the media, because I could show you so many papers, epidemiological papers, mechanism of action papers, like so many ways in which fluoride not only hurts the human body, but serves no biological purpose in the human body. It's outrageous that this is even a controversy. Yet it is, because the media indoctrination is so deep. Mm-hmm. You know, it's sometimes I wonder like what planet I'm living on, but that's the planet that we're living on.
Yeah. And going back to the Department of Education there too, every time that somebody screeches because it has been suggested that the Department of Education should be shut down and education should be rightfully reinstated as a 10th Amendment local issue, as it was up until 1979, 1980. They scream about nonsense and they show in every response how uneducated they are. I know. It's like do you ever wonder why you don't know anything about what is supposed to be codified American civic life?
I know.
Because it's not even about, oh, well, that was just a fashion statement. Like, no, this is still codified law. It's just that we have an American tradition of bad legal precedent that has been rationalized by crooked fucking judges into being constitutional. And
it was 1980, Frank. It wasn't like this has been around since since the revolution.
It's 200 solid years of American education had already passed.
Yeah.
And since then, it's just...
The Department of Education is the experiment rather than the other way, rather than removing it being the experiment, right? It's the other way around. And I wish I had the paper, but I found a paper because I saw a lot of that going around Twitter, and I was like, let me just look up some of the statistics. You know that a lot of the breakdowns of American education, first of all, we've plummeted to like 24th somewhere from a much higher perch since the Department of Education. But when they analyzed the top performing countries in the world, one of the main themes, I won't remember the countries because there was a whole handful of countries that performed better than the United States. And when they analyzed them for, what made them so advanced in education, there were a whole litany of things. But one of the main consistent themes was decentralization. So I'm like, wow, these people really, it's sad watching them argue this point where they really just, it's a reflex, Frank. You're taking away the government that's protecting us, right? Like I told you a while ago about that old Art Bell episode where it was like a socialist arguing with a Republican, I guess. And the socialist argument was always the government has to fix it. The government's going to fix it. And I just keep asking the guy, like, what has the government fixed in your life that you've given them such deference?
Yep.
You know?
I know there was one person who said at some point, Donald Trump wants to magnify the university system or something like that in response to the story. And I'm like, I hope I get a response. I know I'm just mostly just pissing into the wind. Okay. I know I'm just pissing all over myself.
Yeah.
But how do and I want somebody to make it sense. I ask these questions because I hope one of them can attempt to make sense for me, and maybe along the way realize this doesn't make any fucking sense. Because how does taking action to decentralize something like education actually work toward universalizing it? And that, I mean, there's so many contradictions just in the protesting. And yet they continue to say this is fascistic. What's fascist? Did you ever hear of a fascist dictator who comes in and lessens their influence on any part of the country?
The worst fascist ever.
I'm sending this back to the states. I mean, that's just incredible.
Well, I mean, but they throw around that because idiots like Joe Scarborough don't know what that word means, right? They just throw that word around because they know that it gets a rise out of people, and so they continue to do it. It's yeah, man, I would love to see those shows go off the air. They deserve it. They have negatively influenced the public, mostly because they just can't keep their own personal biases to themselves. Like, you know, I think, wasn't it Rachel Maddow who was sued by maybe OAN or something, and her defense in court was, people shouldn't be getting the news from me because basically I'm entertainment, like tacitly admitting, or maybe intentionally, overtly admitting that she is actually not news. I believe that was her legal defense.
I think it was her, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. Like, but she pretends to be a journalist, and she has that, you know, Donald Trump, he's gonna do things. You know, that's Rachel Maddow's whole shtick, but she's pure circus entertainment. She's not news. None of them are news.
You had her quivering giggle down pretty well.
I've watched way too many clips.
I know.
It's a problem. I got to stop.
Yeah, all you have to do is start violently blinking.
Yeah.
She's a blinker.
I love your assertion that there's a person trapped inside Rachel Maddow trying to get out.
I'm not joking.
I believe you. Maybe she was part of a science experiment. Maybe Anthony Fauci. Maybe she was part of the Beagle experiment. Who knows?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I got to ask her. I got to ask her one day. It's like, excuse me. Mr. Maddow, I need to ask you something about, this might be too personal, but do you have another person inside of you? And I'm not being crass. Do you have another, like a person inside of you? Like, how
do we decouple this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or whoever's inside of there, please, can you blink an SOS right now?
It would be a good time to learn Morse code, yeah.
No, I wish I knew Morse code, because I'm pretty sure that she's sending a message out.
There may be more than one. She may not be the only one trying to escape.
Well, I saw Rachel Maddow's high school yearbook photo. Hold on.
Was the photo blinking?
No, hold on. Rachel Maddow high school yearbook photo. I mean, this is the one that always goes around. Let me see here. Hold on. Let me get this up and image and new tab. I think it's maybe it is. It could be.
Is she mid blink?
I don't know. This is going around for a while. If it's wrong, then whatever. We're just having fun here.
Okay.
But this is what I saw.
No.
This is what has going around a lot.
Lost.
Maybe it's not. It looks like the same nose, but
I got to examine this further.
I really think if this is real,
can we get AI involved to see if it's the same person?
Whoever's on the left is not gone. She's just trapped.
That's who's trapped inside Rachel Maddow.
That's the person that is blinking.
You've unsolved the mystery.
I really think that she's in there.
She was a very attractive, probably highly intelligent and very motivated woman. And what happened?
I don't know. Thankfully, she learned Morse code.
Right.
Because this is the only way she can communicate with the world.
There's still hope for her. We might be able to salvage her. I don't know. I think it's worth a try. Let's bring her in studio. Let's bring her in studio and we'll just have a conversation.
I gotta.
Wow.
I think it's her nose. It looks like her chin. And
you know, I feel safe saying this now, Frank. Now that Trump has won the election, I don't know if I told you this in private, but I don't think I actually said this on the air. That remember the whole Project 2025 insanity?
Yeah.
So back when it was like a year, maybe a year and a half ago, and I was like, all right, Jay, put your money where your mouth is, right? So I just put in all my stuff. I just put in an application, did all this stuff. Well, they contacted me. And they asked me to...
Who did? Who contacted you?
Project 2025 from the Heritage Foundation.
Heritage?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they asked me to take a bunch of exams, submit several essays, answer a whole bunch of extra, questions. And they were really determining my policy stance, my personality, this whole thing. It took hours I felt like I was back in grad school. And so I submitted all that stuff. I did all their work. I read all their literature and stuff. And then they just kind of said, Great. Well, I mean, remember, this is over a year ago. Thanks. We'll be in touch. Now, I didn't say anything because I didn't want the FBI knocking on my door just for merely applying to the dreaded, fascist, Project 2025. But so it's just interesting. And now RFK has got a whole Maha nomination process out there. So I don't know if any of those are going to overlap or whatever. But I just want the audience to know I put my money where my mouth is. I put my effort where my mouth was. And I just want to serve. I don't want to serve Donald Trump. I don't want to serve anybody like Rich. I want to serve the people. I want to do something to try and better the health of this country rather than doing it just one at a time. I want to see if I can do it on a policy level. So I put myself out there, and I just never said anything on air before.
But you,
I still have not heard back.
So you still not heard back?
Yeah.
And I've seen all of the Maha stuff over there, and people submitting. Even Jim Lee, Climate Viewer was I think nominated for some Make America Healthy Again a portal from a geoengineering aspect.
Yeah, because there's several different disciplines, and I was speaking with Barbara Yates, fan of the show, been on the show, and I think she's going to nominate me. But look, if the quite frankly audience feels that my information is worthwhile, feel free and go vote and do whatever you got to do. But I would be honored to be, and again, I'm not looking to be secretary of anything. I'm not qualified, but I am qualified to be on an advisory committee and certainly give my 2 cents when it comes to dietary guidelines, all these kinds of things. We need a lot of help in a lot of different areas. And so, like I said, a lot of people talk the talk, but I really do walk the walk. And I try to just do what I can anytime I'm called upon to make things better for people.
I wonder.
You can be the press secretary.
Oh, I think I would
daily press briefing at the White House by, quite frankly.
I would love to be. I would love a little bit more access. Like, all I really want to do is continue doing this show, but speak to. I just want to be able to continue growing and grow the audience and grow the format, because it's not just about news. It's also about culture.
Absolutely,
it's mostly culture. We're just doing the news a lot right now because we're living the news. We're living history right now. But I would love because I've heard whisperings about how the new White House press corps could be radically changed, where there can be, how if you wanted to go see a taping of The Tonight Show, you could essentially just put in for tickets. They're free tickets, and you go. I'm hearing that it could be that people with podcasts or new media independent personalities can actually get press passes for a day and sit there rubbing shoulders with assholes from ABC. That would be awesome, just to sit there for. I'd drive into DC for an afternoon to hang out there.
Without a doubt, Frank. That's what Trump. God, the amount available to him right now with this mandate and not having to worry about a second term, or another term, I should say, who knows what term he's on right now, is incredible. And the kinds of changes that he could bake into the system, especially if people love it, right? So he changes this whole thing. Maybe he makes the mainstream media take a back seat because they have not earned what the independent media has earned. How incredible would that be? And then if the people like it, and the establishment tries to change it back, there would be an uproar. Just like we were saying before, release some bombshells. Let us know what happened to John F. Kennedy. You know how many minds and hearts that would change in this country, knowing what their government did? Finally, someone tells them the truth. Man, I'm telling you, the possibilities are endless. I hope that he seizes on these opportunities, and remaking the press corps would be an incredible start to that. These people don't deserve the places that they sit, and I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah, it would. So let me hold on. Somebody just sent me the Scott Baio. Looks like Scott Baio has a spoiler alert for some upcoming arrests. Hold on. It can't be real.
Rosie O'Donnell, John Stamos, Eva Longoria, John Legend and his wife, Spike Lee, Alyssa Milano, Bruce Springsteen, Barbara Streisand, Mark Cuban, and others.
What?
Is that really Scott Baio?
Yeah, it's Scott Baio, but he's sitting there with a spiral notebook page, and I don't.
Very official.
I don't know.
I got this list from Diddy. I pulled it out of Diddy's notebook.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, homeboy. C. Blanche, thank you so much. Thank you, Candelicious, Chatty KC, and Our 4 Cents says, Jay, give him 4 cents, not 2.
Oh,
yeah. So here's what we have going on tonight, because we're about to end the show right now. Head on over to I know it was an incredible show tonight. QuiteFrankly.tv. wherever you're watching, and there's thousands of you watching all over the place, go over to quitefrankly.tv. Tonight, after we end here, a couple of moments after we end here, Suspicious Observers. A little update from Ben over there at Suspicious Observers. Observation Lounge, the world's fairs are coming back to America. I knew that he would love that. Gregory Aldrete is Every Civilization Doomed to Fail. Mark Dice, They're Getting Worse. Paul Joseph Watson, Dr. Steve Turley, Timothy Gordon, Truth Stream Media, Colonel Douglas McGregor on Trump, the economy, Bitcoin, and World War III, and then a late-night kicker, Art Bell with Jason Martell, Lost Cycle of Time. That's a great episode. I've heard that one before. That all starts on quitefrankly.tv momentarily. You could just keep it on in the background, do whatever you're doing at night, watch it with the awesome people in the chat room. There's just a lot of great stuff there. It's starting at quitefrankly.tv when we end. And finally, there's one Rumble rant that came in. And it was from Hey, Would You Blow Me? And how about this, Jay? Let's mark this down for a big review because it's been a while since we did it. Hey, Would You Blow Me says, hey, Julius, what's good for high blood pressure?
Oh, yeah, we can definitely do that.
Let's just do a review one day because there's a lot of people in my life with blood pressure. They're all with blood pressure. There's a lot of people in my life.
A lot of people in my life that have blood pressure.
They still have a pulse. There's a lot of people with pulses.
Well, the first thing I'll tell everybody to do is go to my Substack. I have a research paper that I wrote in grad school written on hypertension. Read it. It's very, very informative, fully cited, unlike anything that happens on the internet. That's a good place to start. So perpetualhealth.substack.com. Just look through the papers. You'll find hypertension. But we can certainly go through it because there are a lot of causes, and there's a lot of potential interventions that can really do a number on it. So,
yes, yeah, that's what we're gonna have to do. We have to do that big one there too, because you know what that all ties into. That all ties into fat and salt.
Yeah, and cholesterol.
Everybody, especially salt. Everybody says, "Oh, well, I can't touch salt, anything like that. My heart will literally explode."
Read that paper; it'll change your mind, and it'll certainly be a nice primer for the conversation too.
Okay, well, there you have it. And with that, I think that is all. Thank you to all the people who super chatted. Thank you to the Gold Pills. I just released the scratching and after hours programming on quitefrankly.tv, powered by Pilled and Foxhole, is starting in just a moment. Jay Gulinello, his Instagram has been linked inside the description of the episode. You can find his Substack through there. And also the locals for the People's Pundit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, I love Rich's shows, man. I'm telling you, I catch him all the time. Just ton of data, nerd out. It's great stuff.
And find Jay on Rumble as well, Perpetual Health. And I also tagged him in the title of this stream that was hosted on Twitter, which actually brought in, I don't know, I saw thousands of people watching over there recently. So
cool.
I hope people click through and follow you on Twitter. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Get over to quitefrankly.tv and I'll be in that chat room before you know it.
I'll catch you on the flip side. Fuck!